Show some love. Where y'all at? What city? What state y'all joining from? Let us know. Holla at your girl. Pavitra, hey. Also, we are recording. Just so you people know, we are everyone knows we are recording the session. So if anyone, may need the session and they're not able to join, we're recording it. So people will be able to have access, to anything they may have missed. All right, Roger from Legal Aid. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of level setting. So it's been a long time coming, y'all. Jay Jordan corralled us all together with so much excitement, on the heels of Prop 47, right? And we wanted to see what could we do next? What was next after Prop 47? What could we do that was more broader? What other ways could we help our people? Or could we expound, on expungement and automation and stuff like that? And we came up with, sunsets. We came up with the second chances work where we all, came together over a 6-month period, and we piped out a wonderful paper called The Road to Redemption that mapped out what redemption looked like and, how were we able to put that together. And what came out of that was the AB 1076, our automation bill, that will automate certain crimes and stuff like that. And it was, the infrastructure that would set us up to win this big win called SB 731. And so this was important work. This was important work. This was groundbreaking work. A lot of tears was shed. A lot of this can't happen was said. A lot of y'all crazy was said. A lot of, oh my God, this, how can we make this happen? And the solution is this call today. It happened. We did it. And we couldn't have done it without you guys and under Jay's leadership and vision and all of his amping up people and getting people together, because he's so great at that. This is our win. So not only are we calling to give people information, but we're also calling to get people together to really sit and celebrate this amazing win that we are about to roll out next year for our people. So let's get into it. Next slide. So a little bit about Californians for Safety and Justice. We are a program of Alliance for Safety and Justice that works with Californians from all walks of life to replace prison and justice system waste with common sense solutions that create safe neighborhoods. Through policy and advocacy, grassroots mobilization, public education, alliances, and support for local best practices, we promote strategies to stop the cycle of crime, reduce the reliance on incarceration, and build healthy communities. Next slide. REPAC. We AIM, which is the Reentry Providers Association of California. Woo! We aim to advocate on behalf of organizations who provide support, assistance, and resources in helping returning citizens acquire the necessary means to sustain a lifestyle that will not lead back to incarceration, including job acquisition, transportation, childcare, education, and housing. We are a united and strong voice to advance fair and responsible laws and further equitable policies, budgets, and practices enabling reentry providers to build capacity and sustain their mission. That's hella important work. I love it. Next slide. TimeDone. All right, period. TimeDone works towards improving public safety by removing barriers to economic stability and successful reintegration back into society. I am Ingrid Archie, your organizing director from TimeDone, and we are going to educate our providers and our great partners that made all of this, that helped to make all of this great work happen so that we could go and get our people, right, y'all? Let's go. Next slide. Overview. So the purpose of this presentation, like I've been saying before, is to share information on the status of where we are regarding Senate Bill 731 and Assembly Bill 1076. As leaders working towards collective safety, we are here to take in learnings from the past experiences, best practices, and point out opportunities that need to be addressed. As a collaborative effort, we invite you to share your experiences, make suggestions and enhancements at every stage of our process together. So we welcome feedback, We need it, we want it, we love it. Next slide. Summary of topics. So we'll be going over again the bills, Assembly Bill 1076, Senate Bill 731. We'll be talking about automation. We'll be talking about petition-based. We'll be talking about implementation of both of those bills, and we'll be talking about the timeline and then next steps so that we are all kind of in sync and on the same page using shared language and shared ideas on how to roll this out. Next slide. All right, Felicia Carvajal, don't choke me out, okay? She is our events manager. She is amazing. She is one of our fearless leaders who is rolling out this amazing plan, who has put it together along with our other amazing staff. But Felicia is gonna come on and she's gonna take you down the path of everything else we talked about regarding the bills. Take it away, Miss Felicia.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Actually, to give everybody their due respect, we're going to have Ed Little, who's been on the front lines, lobbying, ensuring that everything that we've won has been achieved. And I want to be able to give him this opportunity to give us these little tidbits of history on how we got here surrounding AB 1076 and SB 731. Take it away, Ed.
Thank you. I'm really excited to have this conversation with all of you today, and want to jump right into the presentation. So what is AB 1076? AB 1076 was a law that was passed in 2019 that provided for the automation and sealing of non-conviction records and some conviction records. This includes convictions for successfully completed probation, non-probation convictions for misdemeanors and infractions after 1 year has passed following the completion of the sentence, arrest records and other documents involved in court proceedings that did not lead to a conviction. It was expanded on by SB 731 to include all felony arrest records. Automated relief from AB 1076, misdemeanors and felonies resulting in probation, started July 1st, 2022. Courts started acting July 1, 2023. AB 1076 relief is retroactive back to January 1, 1973. Next slide, please. What is SB 731? SB 731 is a law that significantly expands the impact and availability of expungement in California. It primarily includes two parts: the automation of expungement for certain records and petition-based expungement for records that previously would not qualify for relief. In addition, SB 731 expanded key provisions of the 2019's AB 1076 and removes the impact of a conviction for possession of a controlled substance if the conviction is more than 5 years old when an individual is applying for a teaching credential. SB 731's automated expungement process for felonies is retroactive back to 2005. Next slide.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you for all of the work that you've done. Again, my name is Felicia Carbajal. I am the events and community manager. I'm super excited to walk us through some of the nitty-gritty points in terms of let's talk about automation first. So now on to this criteria specifically surrounding automated expungement. I know many of the folks on this call have already heard about this part of SB 731, and it's really exciting because of the expansion of collateral consequences relief. In essence, SB 731 expands the automated expungement process started by AB 1076 to include felonies that are not violent or serious as defined by the penal code and do not require registration as a sex offender. This relief is contained in Penal Code section 1023.425 and covers all felonies and conviction dates past January 1st, 2005. This process will begin with the implementation, as folks know, July of 2023. The individual must have completed their sentence and 4 years has passed without a subsequent felony conviction. In addition, they cannot be on probation, cannot be on parole, and cannot have any pending charges. The prosecuting attorney and probation departments have an opportunity to petition the court to block this relief based on showing that the granting that relief in particular would pose a substantial threat to public safety. So as this outlines, the individual must have completed their sentence and cannot be on probation or parole. There is no indication of any additional pending criminal charges. The conviction cannot be for a serious or violent felony. And then of course, or an offense for which a person must register as a sex offender. The conviction occurred on or after January 1st, 2005. 4 years have passed since completing probation or supervision for the conviction. And then last but not least, as I shared, that the prosecuting attorney and folks aren't blocking these decisions. Next slide. Thank you. So this is the one that I personally am most excited about as a person who has a 25-year-old conviction that I have not been able to expunge, and I've helped tens of thousands of people across the country get the relief that they deserve. I'm super excited about this portion of our conversation. So now on to the criteria for automated, sorry about that. About the provisions of SB 731. It's the expansion of 1203.41 petition-based sealing to include state prison sentences. So previously, those of us with convictions that included a state prison sentence had very few ways to receive expungement relief. Now under SB 731, anyone with a conviction that included a state prison sentence can petition the court to have their record expunged as long as the conviction did not require registration as a sex offender. They have to wait, of course, 2 years after the completion of their sentence. They cannot be on probation or parole, and they can, and there can be no indication of any pending criminal charges. For those of the folks currently working in reentry, the process will be the same as the current 1023.41 process with the expanded pool of clients. For many, a certificate of rehabilitation was their only form of relief available prior to SB 731. So now folks can have their record expunged and receive the associated housing and employment benefits. This is, of course, as everybody knows, and I'm so grateful for all of the folks who are on this call who have been doing the work and who've laid all of this foundation, that this win for those of us who are justice impacted is going to be incredible and give us the most profound relief that we have seen in this country. Next slide. So now for the timeline, I feel most folks are super familiar with this timeline. They recognize that AB 1076, that the DOJ is really ready to roll all of this out. So the groundwork done and the implementation for the automation relief of SB 731 will be faster to roll out. But that rollout will not begin until January 1st of 2023. The CR 180 is still being updated to include the new SB 731 charges to Penal Code Section 1203.41. So basically, folks are going to be using that form for the petition-based relief for state prison sentences that will begin January 2023. I know it goes into law 1/1, but of course, and excuse me that I have 2022 on there, but petition-based submission begins 1/3 of 2023 due to the holidays. And when folks are going to get back. One other thing that we wanted to note, because this was a question that had been raised in the past surrounding Prop 47, and when Prop 47 is set to sunset, we just wanted to make that note and recognize that folks who are doing the work on the ground and providing this support in particular should continue to support clients up until that November 4th date in particular, because of the remedies that it affords people an opportunity to actually get back. So just, the reduction of the felonies to misdemeanors is incredible. So we encourage folks to continue to do that, and also recognize that, this is going to sunset on the 4th unless the individual can show good cause for not filing earlier. Next slide. And with all of that being said, I'm excited to hand this over to my amazing colleague, Sean, who I think everybody on this call is super familiar with as they walk us through the road and our potential roadblocks for implementation and some of our next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. So I want to cover potential roadblocks for implementation. We know the amazing expertise that we have on this call, and we're seeing in the chat, you guys are already thinking about some ways and processes and some things that may be a potential roadblock. And that's the type of information that we want to work with you on. And so we're asking you, if you're looking at some potential roadblocks right now, not necessarily questions about it, but some things that you're seeing, this could be a potential barrier that we want to address. We're going to ask you to send those roadblocks to sunsets@safeandjust.org, sunsets@safeandjust.org, and then in the subject line, put SB 731 barriers. We want to work with you and our community in really looking at how can we get ahead of some of these barriers. We know in the expertise we have on this call, you've seen some things, you can potentially envision some of the roadblocks that we might face. And we want to get ahead of them with you and work together collaboratively to make sure that we're able to remove them and make this process as easy as possible, as seamless as possible, and then to see some next steps legislatively that we may want to take. Some areas you may see may be some administrative roadblocks. Some may be, unforeseen impact to men and women living with old records. Are there any potential educational roadblocks or any financial roadblocks that you may see that may be barriers that collectively we need to think through? So if you are thinking of now, or you're able, after you're kind of processing what you heard today, some new things pop up, please send those thoughts, those ideas to sunsets@safeandjust.org with the subject line SB 731 barriers, so that we can begin to think together collectively how we can address those barriers. Next slide, please. So what are some of our next steps? What we would like to do is work with you all to establish a recurring monthly meeting about implementation for legal aid and reentry resource providers. We would love to come together every month just to hear and to be able to share, here's what I'm experiencing, here are some of those roadblocks we thought about, here are some ways around it, here are some of the questions that I'm being asked by men and women living with old record that we want to serve. here's some solutions that we've been able to find. So monthly, especially in the new states, we all know after you've done the hard work to get things passed, implementation becomes the next heavy lift. And as a community of providers and legal aid workers, we want to be able to continue to meet and make sure that we're working together for the implementation. And so we want to hear from you on some best days, some best times, if it's during this time, lunchtime, where we can come together every month to kind of have a working group, a working forum where we're hearing from one another some best practices and developing those best practices to be able to share. With that, we're calling on you all to organize with us. We would love to have partners to be able to work together with you to support you in doing any education events you would like to do, whether they be online or excuse me, in person. If you are, want to walk through CR 180 petition support, helping people file it out, any community, education events at all, we would love to create just a table of people that will want to work with us on this implementation plan. And so if you are interested in being a part of that group, being a part of the table that's sitting down and really walking through the implementation plan, please reach out to us. Again, you can reach out to us at the sunsets at safeandjust.org and just subject line implementation team. That'll be awesome. We're looking at, PSA opportunities, whether that be in print, radio, media, right? We would love to hear some ideas that you may have to help us get this word out and make sure that men and women up and down the state understand the difference between 1076 and 731, where they fall and how they should best go to get their records sealed. Also, January 3rd, 2023, we're calling it the SB 731 Statewide Day of Action. So we want to work diligently now as best we can to help men and women get those CR 180s completed and be ready. January 3rd, across the state, we should have courthouses packed with with people ready to be able to go in and file their petition under 731. And so we will have more information to come, but we would love to work with you to think about, how we get this information out, how we get the news out, how we're able to show up across the state at, courthouses across this state on January 3rd to be able to show men and women showing up for the relief that's under 731. Next step, please. Next slide, please. So we're coming to the point. There have been a few questions in the chat, and we thank everyone for those questions. We want to address a few of those as best we can, but I want to ask Ed if he can lean on. We want to break this section up into two places. One, there are going to be questions specifically about what we just heard today, and that we will address to the best we can. There are also maybe some questions about the law itself as we're going through. We want to ask Ed to guide us through how we should deal with those questions.
Sure, thank you, Sean. And so in terms of very high level questions that pertain to the law and implementation in particular, we want to guide those questions to our email listserv at sunsets@safeandjust.org. And the reason we want to drive those questions in that direction is because we will be in ongoing conversations with the DOJ to work hand in glove with them on the implementation process on that end. We are hopeful that with the knowledge and the wisdom that this group provides through your thoughtfulness and questions, that we can have some very fruitful conversations with the DOJ to move the implementation process forward. I've had a few conversations with some folks about implementation and the speed at which we anticipate this taking place. And some folks have reached out to the DOJ and just wanting to know what things are going to look like. And so, my request for this group is to, really send those questions to the Google group so that we can begin to curate a place where we can maintain those questions, but we can also use those questions to inform our discussions with the DOJ. Sean?
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. So appreciate that. So if there's any specific questions that would be directed to the DOJ, we're asking if you would send them to the sunsets@safeandjust.org, and we will be able to walk through that together with you. The next thing, the question that we have, how would we like to communicate just as a group? I know we're talking about a monthly meeting where we can share ideas, but there are some real-time opportunities or real-time questions that may not be able to wait to the first Tuesday or last Tuesday, last Wednesday of the month, right? And so I'm wondering if we as a group would like to figure out here collectively, how do we share information or ask questions immediately, real time, sharing information. One of the thoughts that we had was, and I believe Felicia put it in the chat, was to create this Google group that we would all be a part of. It'd be a listserv that we would be able to put real-time questions in and get real-time responses from this community. So I'm wondering if that seems to make sense to everyone. And how about a bunch of thumbs up if that makes sense to you, and then we can get the information. Felicia has posted the Google group in the chat so that we would be able to have a space that we can communicate real time with things that are happening. All right, so I want to open up team. There are a few questions in the chat. I'll read for us and we can see to the best of our ability about today's presentation if we're able to respond. The first question that I have was from Earl, who asked about outstanding restitution balances. If there's still a restitution balance, can petitioners still file the CR 180?
So there was a bill that SB 1106, which dealt with that very issue, which the primary objective of the bill was to allow people to get their record expunged, at least be eligible to, in spite of the fact that they may still owe restitution. And so the objective was not to allow that to be a barrier to prevent them from getting their records expunged. We know that, oftentimes people need to be able to get a job to pay their restitution. And if the restitution is a barrier to getting one's record expunged, then, this is something that needed to be addressed. So, and that was a bill that was ran this year. And we were happy to be a part of the Debt-Free Justice Coalition, who's sponsored that bill. And the governor signed that bill and went into law, or goes into law January 1.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ed. The next question is, will we be sharing the PowerPoint after this presentation?
I can.
Alicia, Ed?
We absolutely can make sure that folks get the copy of the presentation and as well as the recording itself.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Our next.
When they had their season chicken, we go to Northgate.
Pardon me? Was that for us? Okay. Our next question in the chat. Are any felonies excluded under the expansion?
So the question was, are any felonies excluded under the expansion?
Yes.
So this, you can kind of take this in two parts.
Got it.
With regard to automation, 1192.7 felonies were excluded or carved out from the automated portion of 731.
Got it.
Those are serious felonies. Penal Code 667.5 violent felonies were excluded or carved out from the automated portion.
Got it.
And finally, Penal Code 290 felonies were carved out of the automated portion. This happened when the bill was in Senate Appropriations. Those were the carve outs that were done in that committee. However, those felonies can apply for the petition-based process.
Mhm.
The only felonies that would not be eligible to apply for the petition-based process are sex offenses, particularly those that are currently required to register.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. That is exciting for those of us who may have serious felonies, but knowing that we have an opportunity, that there's a petition-based process, I can speak for myself. That's amazing. And then the last question, or not, a next question I see, and I believe you just answered it, and it's from Katie, and it asks, could we confirm again which felonies will be automatically expunged? That's from automation. I believe you just answered that. So they're prison felonies, Katie, to your question, are eligible as long as they're not under the 290 violent or serious.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. I believe those are all of the questions in the chat. We have a few more minutes. Are there any other questions that anyone may have? Feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you. All right, seeing none, I want to thank everyone. I tell you, everybody is signing up for the group. Is over here dinging and bells whistling. So we are thankful for the excitement of this community. Thankful that we are ready to work together to move to this next step. I just saw one other question put in. What was the penal code 1193 something that one needs to be petitioned? Okay, so the question is, what was the penal code 1193 point something that the one that needs to be petitioned? Ed, did you just mention a penal code 1193?
I did not.
Okay.
I said, oh, okay, I see the answer in the chat. I did reference 1192.7.
Got it.
And that was for serious felonies.
Yep.
And so all of the felonies that fall under that category would not be expunged through automation, but they are eligible to seek redress through the petition-based process.
Okay, all right. Now, one last one, sorry, one more from Rebecca. Has the DOJ said that they have already carried out the retroactive relief for AB 1076 from the back end?
That is in process, and by the time we have our next conversation, our next meeting, we'll be able to give you some concrete answers with regard to the DOJ and their progress around implementation of AB 1076 and SB 731.
Awesome. Thank you. Felicia, back over to you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll put the next slide just so that folks have this information again. So if you want to sign up for the listserv, I dropped it in the chat. I'll drop it in one more time. Then also note, if you have any specific questions, you can send them to sunsets@safeandjust.org. And if you want to talk to somebody sooner than later, feel free to reach out to myself or Sean, and we are super excited to get things rolling. I will make sure that folks get a copy of this recording as well as the PowerPoint for folks who attended. And we look forward to seeing everybody next month as we continue to work together in collaboration to ensure that implementation is what our people need and deserve. So thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.